only 2 minutes behind, so that's
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah,
Like,
no
I keep
worries.
reaching for my mouse like that's gonna do anything for me. Okay. Yay, we're here.
Awesome.
I'm trying to see live chat. That way we can see if anybody asks questions or
Perfect.
anything up.
What does your sweater say?
It says to whatever end.
Cute.
It's from a book series that I'm obsessed with.
Oh, cute.
And it says it
Love
on the
it.
back, like big too.
Nice.
Like just on the bottom, like bottom side.
Cute.
Bigger letters. Yeah, I love it's the Throne of Glass series
Cool.
from Sarah J. Maas. But anyway,
Nice.
yeah, we'll have to see if anybody shows up. So, oh, I don't want to do that. Sorry. I'm touching things and I shouldn't be touching things. There. Okay, sweet. Gosh. Okay. I'm also wondering. Ooh, that was weird. Okay. I don't know. I'm touching buttons. I really need to stop touching buttons.
Okay, so is the chat on?
Yeah. Should
Okay.
be.
Okay, and then I guess it shows that there's one person watching. Maybe that's me.
It could be, or it could be me. I don't know. Yeah, I've made it so that all chat is visible. So it should like pop up from the bottom of the screen when if anybody's sending in messages.
Okay, awesome.
So
I wonder if I can view it too. I want to see what it looks like.
Hi, Melanie.
Hey girl, hey. How you doing?
Thanks for popping in. I know, like, can I see what's happening? Oh yeah, it's showing you live. Interesting.
So, how have you been since QuiltCon? Like, I want to ask what's your like QuiltCon hangover recovery time?
Well, I got sick right when I got back.
Oh,
So
dang.
I had a day. I got home early in the afternoon on Sunday and just kind of took the rest of the day to rest because I was exhausted. I didn't really sleep, which was like I think the biggest issue was just I did not sleep. And
Yeah.
then I had Monday and I was like, okay, I'm feeling good. I like worked, got a bunch of stuff done, and then Tuesday morning I woke up and I was like, oh no, I'm dead. Like I'm literally dead. And then I was sick for a whole week. So it took me until like the next like Wednesday basically to even have enough stamina and like energy to do work.
Yeah.
So my body just said, you know what, you're gonna just rest for a little while.
Your body just kept the score and was like, "You owe me."
Yeah, essentially. But how was yours? Because you vended and like
Yeah.
the
It
first.
it was rougher. It was a rougher recovery for me. I mean, like, vending is a whole different ball game. I have never vended at QuiltCon before until this year, and,
Mm,
it was good. It was really good, but just a whole different experience, like, being on the attendee side versus the teacher side versus the vending side. Because this was, like, my trifecta. So the first year I went, I taught classes back to back to back to back. Like, I literally had 0 break from 9 AM to 9 PM the whole time. So I
oh,
didn't even walk the vendor floor. And then the second time I went to QuiltCon, I like planned my trip like 3 weeks before it happened. And so I didn't do classes or anything. I just walked around the show floor like a
mhm,
butterfly. And then this year, yeah, I planned for like a solid 6 months my
yeah,
booth to vend. So I don't know. It's cool that now I can say that I have like those 3 different experiences of QuiltCon under my belt.
mhm,
Um, and I don't know, like, which one was my favorite. They're all awesome for different reasons. Like, the attendee experience is so, so fun. Like, it feeds your soul. And
yeah,
then the vendor experience, it's like there's a tiny bit of FOMO because it's like you're there, but you're, like, constrained to your booth.
right.
And
It's
then same
a
with
place.
teaching. It's like, yeah, you, like, want people to just come see you because you're kind of stuck in one location. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it was fun. No complaints anywhere for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did feel like it took me a solid week to unpack like all of the booth that I had planned. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was cool. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
It was so cool to see your booth, and I, like, beeline for you, like, first thing we walked in, and I was like,
Oh,
"We're going to see Karlee because I need to see this booth, and I just wanted to give you a squeeze because I was like, this is such a big deal," and
oh, thank you.
it was super fun, and I meant to come back because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy, a pre-quilted panel because I was like got all these bags and things I wanna make, and then I'm like, "Oh, if I don't have to quilt it, then it's already done," and you have such cool fabric, like, already picked out, so but I never made it back to buy anything because it was just, like,
Yeah,
overwhelming. I don't it felt
yeah.
like way do you feel like it was, like, physically more spread out? Did you feel like there was more space or that you saw people less? I don't know.
I feel like it's almost like I saw everybody once. Whereas
Yeah,
last year when I was not vending, it was like, oh, sit and chat for a half hour, go to lunch, and then chat with people more
yeah,
frequently than just like the one time that I'm like, I know everybody is just running around. And
yeah,
so I took as many chances as I could to you know, talk to different people as they were in front of my booth. So
yeah,
yeah, I feel like it could be an entire week. It should just be Monday through Friday. Like,
yeah,
let's just
yeah,
do it.
yeah. Because like, the Thursday through Sunday still is yeah, it's like, I still didn't get to see as many people or do as much, like,
Yeah.
it feels like because the classes fill up so much that it almost would be better to, like, stretch it more because so many people want to take the classes. And I know some people end up, like, selling them because they decide they don't want to or whatever, but
Yeah.
I think that's, like, a big thing too is, like, the classes. And then, yeah, still having time to shop and, like, not be, like, so rushed, like, "Okay, I only have this much time between this class and this class or this class and this
Mhm.
lecture," and I feel like it makes it hard for me to, like, if I get into, like, a groove of, like, I'm talking to people, I'm chatting with people, I'm meeting people, and then I'm like, "Oh, I missed that lecture I was gonna go to," or like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I missed,"
Mhm.
it's like feels like there's just so much more that could be experienced if there was, like, a
Yeah.
little more if it wasn't just, like, yeah, 9 to 9 every day for 3
Yeah.
solid days,
Right.
that it could
Well,
be
yeah.
what do I
I
know?
think that's the one thing that I loved about doing a booth though, is because like I have classes to offer, but it
Mhm,
was nice because like I was able to sign people up for my online class at QuiltCon, and I
mhm,
think that helped a lot of people to be like, "I'm at QuiltCon, what am I gonna do?" Instead of having to sit in a class for 3 hours, which usually the classes are so like, they're so short that it's hard to really dive into something.
mhm,
So, I really liked vending because it allowed me to still show people the class, my graffiti quilting class,
yeah,
but then say, like, "Just sign up now, take the book with you, and then when you get home or when you're traveling, do your educational stuff," but then you can really, like, enjoy QuiltCon not being so go, 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 go. So,
yeah,
that was kinda nice. That was one nice thing because I think the hard part for me teaching at any show, but especially QuiltCon, like, where I was teaching 3-hour chunks back
mhm,
to back, I'm such a, like, long-winded teacher in a really good way, like, long-winded sounds obnoxious, but, like, I feel like when I teach quilting, there's so, so much to go into the curriculum. It's so hard to squeeze it into 3 hours, like, it
yeah,
just feels less, um substantial, right?
mhm,
It's more of like mini classes. So I think a show is really great for really short spurt classes, but I
yeah,
was glad that I was able to be like, okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you really want to like explore your free motion quilting education, then do the online class.
yeah,
So yeah, so that was kind of cool too to be able to kind of start educating people on just how beneficial it is to take an online class versus an in-person one. The
Mhm.
in-person ones are fun because you get to physically connect with the teacher, right? But
Yeah.
the online is so fun because it allows for a longer, more sustainable like relationship with the education that you're getting.
Mhm.
So that's kind of cool to see how the market is kind of morphing and changing between like doing an in-person class, whether it's at a show or at a quilt shop or a retreat, versus the online connections that people are making in this day and age. So
Yeah.
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 Mm.
That makes sense. I think, like, well, and I mean, the reason we're here doing this live today is to talk about your graffiti quilting class because it's coming up soon. And I took it in the fall
Mhm.
as like a first time affiliate, and it was so funny because like when you were on the podcast last year, you were like talking about the affiliate program and oh, you'll get your link, da, da, da. And I was like, what is she talking about? Like I had no idea that you were like
Yeah.
signing me up to do the same. I was happy to do it because I was like, well, yeah, that sounds like fun. But now that I've done it and I took the class and I have the book and all the things, and it's just like you're right. Like you're not long-winded in a bad way. You're not like tangentially like talking about random stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like there is so much that goes into it and there's so many like
Mhm.
nuanced little things that take time to explain and demonstrate and like
Mhm.
talking through people's questions and
Yeah.
cuz I feel like as much as you were demonstrating and showing us, the content in the book, like there was still a lot of like side quest questions of people being like,
Yeah.
well, but what about this scenario? What about
Right.
XYZ? And you're like, oh, easy, let me show you. So then
Mhm.
you could like show us what was going on and like how to answer that question and just like the level the level of care that you give to your class is like
Mhm.
unmatched. I've not seen it
Mm.
in any other teacher. So I'm like
Thank you.
hard advocate for your class. Like everybody needs to take it. Like I did not think that I could do it. And I honestly, I was like, oh, I'll do it on my long arm. But then I was like, no, I actually want to try on my domestic. I've never free motioned on my domestic. And I have a Bernina 770 QE. So like I have the
Yeah.
ability to do it.
Right.
And that's what I was doing the whole time. And it was really fun. And like obviously I can blow those concepts up and make them larger on the long arm. I know how to do
Right.
that.
Right.
But I was like, well, I'm going to challenge myself to do this in a different way. And it's just so cool how you can like share the concepts across machines and you can do it on like this micro level because that's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like enlarge it and take it to the long arm. And it's just like, it's so cool. And that you show it in different ways too.
Yeah.
Because you show it
Yeah.
on your sit down long arm and then you've shown stuff on your stand up. And
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah, thank you. I'm
yeah.
really glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that the like care and attention to detail that I've put into it shows because there is so much to it. Like I feel like I'm always balancing between like self promotion, but then also just like self esteem.
Mhm,
Like I am
mhm.
so proud. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of how far it's come because it's crazy to think that I've been teaching graffiti quilting for a decade. Like I
Yeah.
cannot believe that a decade has passed. Um, just with how far the concept has come, but,
Mhm.
it's also cool to see that even though it's a decade old, there's people that have never heard of it still, and to
Yeah.
be able to continue sharing it and showing it to people is really cool. Like, that's my jam is to help quilters unlock creative potential, right? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
the first thing I feel like the first hurdle is, like, actually really believing that you have the possibility of being a good free motion quilter because there are so many people that just like write themselves off from the very beginning and they see
Yeah.
something and they're like, nope, can't do it. Nope, I can't. That's like,
Mhm.
did you even try? Like, come
Yeah.
on. Like, there's so much
Right?
more to this. Like, how many people do that with other things? Like, no one
Yeah.
looks at a bike and says, like, I could never ride a bike. It's like, no,
No.
just literally sit your butt down one step at a time, push your feet forward, and I'll be here to catch you when you fall down. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's cool to teach it, and I also really love, like, constantly trying to find ways to make it as inclusive as possible. like
Mhm.
to the different camps of quilters, like doing it on a sit down, doing it on a domestic, doing it on a stand up. Like I try really hard to make sure that it's inclusive to people's learning styles and people's studio setups and the accessibility that they have to the supplies that they have. Like you don't need anything fancy to do graffiti quilting. And so it's cool to really just say like we have quilting, but then we have art, right?
Mhm.
And my job is how can I help you unlock your artistic potential? We just happen to be doing it, with fabric and thread. So
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's a really cool aspect of it that just like gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's really cool, and I think, it's crazy sometimes because I think, like, too, when you have, like, good positive self-esteem about yourself and you know what you bring to the table and you're open about it, it can
mhm,
be really like, some people it can be really off-putting to some people because they're not
yeah,
used to experiencing that, especially from a woman. So, like,
right.
the fact that you're just, like, this powerhouse in long arm quilting and you are not afraid to tell people that you're really freaking good at it, and, like, I love that about you. Like, honestly,
Thank
like,
you.
when we first, like, met and we're first, like, starting our professional and personal relationship, I was just
Mhm,
like, "Wow, like, this is incredible, like, I need more of that in my life," and coming from a space of, like, that, like, "Ooh, women must be humble and quiet and in the background."
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's hard to overcome that, so, like,
yeah.
I think too, that's something that when you step into something new and you have the mindset of like, well, I don't want to make waves and I don't want to cause problems, and it almost like makes you, yeah, like shy away from things when,
Mhm,
but if you step up to it and you're like, I'm good at learning stuff, like I'm going to try this new thing and I probably am going to mess it up, but then that's how I'm going to learn it, and
right.
just takes that whole different mindset. And I think you being so encouraging and like so positive with the learners, and even though sometimes like maybe like a little bit snarky things, or maybe people seeming like they were getting frustrated with certain aspects of like the YouTube live or whatever that hadn't it was like not in your control or whatever, you just
Right.
like handled it all with so much grace and just like, yeah, it just when you come into a space with confidence, it changes how the flow of everything goes. I
Mhm.
like how
Yeah.
does Do you find that for yourself? Like, is that something that you have to, like, consciously practice, or is it just how you show up now?
Um, I don't know. I think it's a combination of things because like I think I get like nervous or stage fright just like anybody else, but not when I'm confident about the thing that I'm talking about. Like, don't put me in front of people and ask me to talk about tax loopholes or how to change the oil in a car, like so
Right.
I feel like part of it is like strategically placing myself in positions to be confident
Mhm.
only in those particular circumstances, like this is the thing that I feel like my creative potential, this is where it is. And so this is my little planter box that I get to kind of shine and grow in.
Mhm.
Um, but I think also too, what I that has taught me is about like leaning into authenticity in the sense, not like, and I know that sounds like hippy dippy to be like just authentic, but like I think there's a level of like confidence while also fully acknowledging that you're not gonna be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like, when I'm in a live class session, there will be times that I slip up on my words, or like you've seen in the live class that there will be times, not very often, but there have
Mhm.
been times that I've said, like, trying to explain something and say, "No, okay, there's a word that I'm looking for."
Mhm.
And I'll, like, kinda pause because, like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, I'm live, but that doesn't mean that I have, like, a memorized script of what I'm saying,
Right.
and I think showing that, I think, helps my students to really feel comfortable in their own insecurity because they
Mhm.
get a front row seat of seeing my insecurity,
Mhm.
and I feel happy to give that. Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
a give and take in the class that I really love,
Mhm.
is to say, like, I'll be doing a quilting demonstration and there will my thread will break, and I'll be like, "Oh, my thread broke. Okay, give me 40 seconds and I'm going to redo my thread. It's like
Right.
no big deal, you know?
Yeah.
And one thing that I think has been a blessing for me is that when I show up in the most like authentic way possible of really just showing who I am, both good and
Mhm.
bad, it
Yeah.
allows people to find me and either accept or reject me, which
Right.
is a great thing. Like, we
Right.
normally think like you don't want to be rejected by anybody, but
Well,
sometimes being rejected by people who are just not your people is a really great gift because
right.
it kind of distills the people who stay into a more valuable like hive mind, so to speak.
Yes. Yes.
And I really love that. And I have found that through my career there are different ways that I've been able to do that. Like I think um like something with graffiti quilting specifically, especially when I did the 10-year anniversary like updated version of the book and the class.
Mhm.
um I found different aspects of the way I chose to show up with that polarizing to some people. So, like,
Yeah.
for instance, the book that you get in your welcome package, it's a chunky, thick boy.
Oh,
Like, it's
yeah.
almost 400 pages. It's a textbook, right? Like,
Yeah.
let me show you this amazing chubby, chubby thing, right?
I
So, like,
know. Yeah.
this textbook, it's like
Shocker.
newborn baby sized. And and so when I really poured myself into this. Like, this was an entire year's worth of work.
Mhm.
But even more than that, it was the last 15 years distilled down into this
Right.
book, you know?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because when I launched that, I said, look, this book is amazing. It's new, it's improved, it's all the things that were in my head about quilting that I had learned from teaching. And
Yeah.
the polarizing part about that is there were some people that would say, like, because I would say, okay, when you sign up for the class, that's how you get the book. Like,
Yeah.
that it is a whole thing. The book is the manifestation of this whole experience that I've packaged up into a neat little bow to present to you.
Mhm.
And people would say, like, oh, I don't want the class. I just want the book. So how much for just the book? And I would say, well,
That's
you
not how it works.
can just use the book if you want, but there's no price difference because everything is included. I'm not going to sell you a car with no tires. I'm
Right.
not going to sell you just the book because everything that's in the book is it's not just the physical pages, right? Like those
Right.
QR codes, which I still think are genius,
Mhm.
that gives all of that extra content that rounds out everything that you can't just simply print onto a page. It
Yeah.
was so important for me to maintain that sense of control over what this thing is that I've created
Mhm.
and present it in the most complete and comprehensive and robust and authentic way. Um, and so it's been interesting, like for me to experience that exchange with people, the people who will say, like, well, I don't want to pay $550 for the class. I just want the book. Meaning, what's the cheapest amount of money that they can spend, right? And
Right.
so I finally just said, okay, if you just want the book, it's $550. Like,
Mhm.
that's the price that it is
Right.
because of everything you get. You don't have to show up to the online classes. You don't have to ever scan a QR code if you don't want to, but
Right.
you pay for the whole thing while you're there. And but the my point by bringing this up is that for every one person who said, like, okay, no thanks, like,
Mhm.
I'll just find something else, there have been probably 50 people who are like, you get all of that for just $550, please take my money.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, just a good kind of illustration or an example of how when I have stood in a place of confidence and said, like, no, I'm confident with what I'm offering, I
Mhm.
don't have to haggle the price. I don't have to try to convince people. And I also don't have to like bend to that and be like, okay, just take the book. Like,
Yeah.
it felt good to be that way because it also attracted my type of people, the
Right.
people who I didn't have to convince them of the value because
Right.
they saw it. And that's really cool too. So I don't
Mhm.
know. So kind of taking that deeper, like you could just see it as like, oh, this is just like a sales pitch for a graffiti quilting class. But really there's like a deeper underlying message that I think in the way that I try to run my business so that it is sustainable for me both financially but as well as like emotionally and
Yeah.
mentally. Like I want students who are chomping at the bit and eager to learn new information and who are grateful when I show up and provide it. When I feel that gratitude, it like puts fire under my butt to keep giving and giving and giving and giving.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so I think that's kind of what drives me to continue to say like I'm going to be confident but also vulnerable, and
Mhm.
if people don't like me, then they've done me a favor by letting me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that, yeah, just bringing your whole self to whatever you do is so important because it
Mhm.
will. It will set apart the people who value what you're bringing to the space and the people who can't see it yet. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I think it just, yeah, it brings a more authentic audience. It brings a more authentic grouping of people who understand what they're getting and understand what you're giving. Because honestly, like you said, that book is the culmination of the last 15 years of you starting to, like, you started backwards almost, right? Like you talked about it in your episode when you were on the show, like how you started working for a long arm company and you started learning the long arming part before you learned
Right.
patchwork and learned quilting,
Mhm.
and your drive comes from that. Like, you can create art on blank fabric. You don't have to
Yeah.
piece a quilt to have beautiful quilting,
Mhm.
and I think that frees up a lot of the feeling of some people. I don't love piecing. I don't love it,
Mhm.
but I wanna have beautiful quilts, and, like, you make your for people who maybe try it and don't wanna do free motion, or maybe they just don't have the capability, you have pantographs, like, edge to edge, that long
Mhm.
armers can use, digitally on people's quilts to give them that same feel and that same look
Yeah.
without having to stand over their machine and do it custom every single time. Because
Yeah.
as you know, it takes forever,
Right.
but I think I'm with you. I think that like, again, you know what you're bringing to the table. You know what you're bringing to the space, and you know how much work and time you've put into it, and the book is truly so gorgeous. Like, I just
Thank
love
you.
still flipping through it and just looking at everything, and those QR codes, you're right, that is freaking genius because now it's like I don't have to be like, "Oh, shoot, I didn't take enough notes on that page or on that
Right.
day." I'm like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
can go to the QR code and then access to the videos, the class itself until,
Right.
you know, Facebook goes away or until whatever, like,
Yeah.
things break down and we have no internet." I don't know, but um, so that to me is worth it because not only, did I take the class, and I think I still have to finish the last one actually
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
but, I can go do that.
Yeah.
I didn't lose
Exactly.
access to it just because my
Right.
class window is closed. Like,
Right.
I forever have access to that
Mhm.
material,
Yep.
the extras that come along with it, and that
Right.
feed feed the commentary in the book and explain, like, more deeply what's in the book.
Mhm.
That I think you're right. Like, that book would be like 5 times the size if you wrote down everything that
Right.
you get out of the class as well as what's in the book.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I love like what you said, like I am not when you said like, "Oh, I think I still need to finish the class," right? I'm
Mhm.
under no delusions that anyone is going to like finish the class, right? Because it's a journey. I realize that people's creative journeys are not linear and they're also not um like constrained, Like I have
Yeah.
many students who sign up for the class and they say, "I'm signed up, but I haven't even watched the first video." And it's like, "Okay,
Oh,
whenever you're ready, it's there." Like
yeah.
I've I've protected it and put it in a way that protecting it meaning when they're ready, it's there for them. It's like
Mhm.
I'm saying, whenever you are ready to wrap your head around it, I've got you. Because I think that was another part of like quilting classes in general that I didn't want to contribute to, which is the anxiety of finishing,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so much performance anxiety where
Mhm.
graffiti quilting is not a project-based class, it
No.
is a technique-based class. So it's like it really is like a methodology for expanding your artistic abilities. It's me putting vocabulary to say like here are all of these exercises and as you do each one, stuff's going to like happen inside of you and
Mhm.
and you figure out what that means for you. but
Yeah.
until then, here's some vocabulary around what we're doing, and I
Mhm.
really love that. And so I that's another thing that I really prioritize as a teacher is giving people the time and space to breathe, because the last thing I want to be is a contributor of stress and anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
I do not want to be one of the things that causes people to hate being creative. And
Right.
so that's what I love too, like what you're saying about, like, it's okay to say that you're not done. It's okay to admit that you haven't done every single thing, especially when I give you this giant thing to bite off and chew. Like,
Yeah.
I realize that even when my students do work through, like in the book I have built-in homework assignments,
Mhm.
and even if you do every single homework assignment, those are not like uh all encompassing, right? Like, it's not like doing all the homework assignments, all of a sudden you're gonna be perfect at creativity.
Right.
Like, there's still stuff to always explore that I didn't even put in. But
Mhm.
again, the thing that I am so proud of is that even though my own creativity is still spinning and moving, I
Mhm.
can continue adding stuff to that and give that to my students for years to come. So it's like, it's really, when someone signs up for the class, they're not just paying for a class and a book and a welcome package with a ton of awesome goodies,
Yeah.
but they're paying really into investing in themselves. They're
Mhm.
investing in the next step in their journey of saying, like, okay, I have designated X amount of dollars, and now I don't have to spend more money and more money and more money every time I want to learn something new.
Right.
I mean, obviously it's not infinite. Like, what I teach, what I include in the curriculum, it's not infinite, but for the price you pay, it's a vast amount of resources
Mhm.
to really invest in your own creative skills. And
Yeah.
I'm like just honored to to have provided that to anyone who
Yeah.
wants it. Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Like, I talk about like building a tribe and finding people who, like fit into your own tribe.
Mhm.
But I also want to say, when I have a breakup from me and someone that I'm connecting with in my classes,
Yeah.
I'm never the one dumping anybody. Like, I don't dump people, but I realize if people wanna dump me, I'm fine. Like,
Mhm.
I get that, and there's no skin off my back, because I realize I'm not for everybody,
Right.
but I do also try to be as welcoming and as warm as possible, um, especially because I feel like, for me, not to get, like, weird and hippy dippy, but for me, part of that is, like, um, nourishing or nurturing my own beginning quilter,
Mhm.
because there were so many times that I didn't have that embracing, like I wish I had, like, I started quilting when I was 18,
Mhm.
and it was when I was, like, 21 that I was really making waves as, like, a professional,
Yeah.
and there were not mid-20, early 20s people a decade ago,
Right.
like, and so there was definitely, it was lonely at times because the community was not what it is now in terms of younger quilters, millennial quilters, even Gen Z quilters now who are really embracing it. It makes me so happy and
Yeah.
also jealous, because I wish that I had had more of that, like, embracing when I was a little baby quilter. So it just is like, if
Yeah.
I can be that for somebody, whether they're 16 or 60 or 55 or 42, I don't care. Like,
Right.
we're all like, I would say I'm a 15-year-old quilter, right? Like,
Mhm.
how long you've been doing your craft. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's cool to also really magnify the community of saying, like, you can be here and you can take up space and you can talk about what you want to talk about, and you can complain. You get to complain about the things about quilting that we don't like, and that's fine. And you
Yeah.
get to dump people and you get to embrace people, and like, you get to talk about the finances of it, like all of the things that I feel like we're shushed as women,
Mhm.
and the folk art aspect of quilting,
Mhm.
um, like breaking those barriers. I think you do an amazing job with that. Like, your podcast is such a breath of fresh air
Mm, thank
to
you.
say in the thing, whether it's the weird thing or the taboo thing, like, I think we need all of that. And that's So it's cool. It's
Yeah,
really cool to be able to see more and more like-minded individuals as time goes on, and I
yeah,
feel like we are contributing to that, so pat
yeah.
yourself on the back because
You too,
you
you
are
too.
doing an amazing job, and it's like respect for that, so
Yeah. Well, I think it's important too, like, that when we do find each other, like, that we stick together and we lift each other up and yeah, I'm not gonna necessarily be the one to break up with somebody unless they've, like, keep showing me that they're
right.
not coming to me with good intentions or, like, with
Mhm.
in good faith, like, then I will set a boundary, but I'm more likely to give people an opportunity, more
Yeah.
chances to show up because that's like, yeah, we're all people and we all have our weird, like, internal thoughts that maybe we don't realize are there and that colors how we behave. And it's kind of like, well, maybe if I tell you that your behavior is bothering me or that what you did is hurtful, then I'm at least giving you the opportunity to fix it if
Mhm.
you weren't aware. And if you are aware and you choose not to fix it, then goodbye.
GTFO, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I think you're right too. I think part of my mission in all of this, in the podcast, in my long arming business, and all of it is to nurture like my yeah, like you said, like
Yeah.
my beginning quilter self and like showing up in a non-judgmental way of like, I mean, sure, we all have judgments, but just like in a space of like, I'm if you send me your quilt, I'm not gonna judge it. Like, unless
Mhm.
there's something, like, technically incorrect about it that's going to cause problems, like, I'm not gonna say, "I don't like your quilt," or I'm not gonna tell you, like, even if I didn't like it, I would never tell you, and it doesn't matter because if you love it and what I'm doing with your quilt is making you happy, that's all I care about. Like,
Yeah.
and that like, I needed that, Like, I needed a space
Mhm.
where I could just, like, try things and be adventurous without feeling the fear of, like, "Oh, no, somebody's gonna tell me I'm doing it wrong," or, like,
Right.
"I'm gonna
Right.
make somebody upset." And it's like, "Nope, that's not what this is." So, I appreciate you saying that about the podcast because it's a labor of love, and it's been really eye-opening and growth-inducing and
Mhm. Yeah.
given me a new look at myself, and I think I used to come into it in a different space, just like because I wasn't very confident about it. I wasn't super sure of myself, or like I didn't know myself enough to know where I needed to have boundaries too. And
Mhm.
so the
Mhm.
more the more I've stared at myself on the screen and listened to myself talk and had to just accept parts about me that maybe like other people don't like. It's like, okay, well, that's just who I am. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen, you know?
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
the people who do find, you know, something about it that they like or that resonates with them, they stick
Yeah.
around because
Exactly.
again, when you show up as your full self, then you give people an immediate ability to say, yes, I can vibe with this, or no, this is
Mhm.
not for me. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
but they get to be the ones to make that decision.
Right, right. Well, and I think another thing that comes to my mind too is being able to compartmentalize who you are as a person versus the work that you do.
Mhm.
Like um learning how to not take it personal when someone says, "Your quilt's ugly." Like, they're not
Yeah.
saying that sounds so brash, but, like, let me
Yeah.
elaborate. Like, there's a difference between someone saying, "That quilt is ugly," and, "You are ugly for making that quilt," you know?
Right.
Like, people aren't really actually attacking someone's character
Right.
based on their artwork that they make.
Right.
I mean, not often at least. I mean, I realize that there is artwork or people attach their identity to their artwork. I get that.
Mhm.
I guess speaking from my own personal experience, the times that people have straight up said to me like that is ugly. It's a learning opportunity
Mhm.
for me to be like, "Okay, they just hate the quilt. Like, I'm not a
Yeah.
bad person, and they're
Right.
not even trying to tell me that I'm a bad person. They simply just have an opinion about this inanimate object, and we don't agree, and that's cool." And I think taking it to that level makes it even easier for me to be like, I'll be friends with you. I'm glad that you were honest about how you feel about this piece of work that I did. Cool. Like,
Right.
and I think that's another, I don't know. I don't want to say, and like, I'm not trying to advocate for poor treatment because of obviously that's terribly mean to tell someone that you don't like their work. But I've learned that when people tell me that they don't like my work, it's easy for me to be like, and like,
Yeah.
cool, like, all right, it's not for you,
Right.
like, and kind of
Yeah.
like own that and take it back and say like, maybe it's worth evaluating why you felt the need to say that out loud.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, like, we're good. I'm going to go ahead and realize that that was not a personal attack on me. So I don't
Yeah.
know. It's kind of a balance beam of that too, of just like I think the root of this subject is remembering that like your artwork or what anything that you do creatively is a thing that you did, not a
Mhm.
thing that you are, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And, um, you can kind of separate yourself from your work a little bit in that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think sometimes that's healthy and liberating to say like, "Yeah, I have made some ugly quilts," and it's like, "Fine, nobody died, and I don't have to show them to anybody."
Right.
And then I think also just remembering that, like, if you are making work hoping for other people's praise, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
Like, you have to let go of other people's opinions being whether you define yourself as good or not,
Mhm.
or you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, there's a comment. Patricia says, "People have different taste in things. Wouldn't it be boring if we all liked exactly the same styles, designs, etc.?"
So boring.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like boring but fun. Like it does feel fun to be like, we all love this fabric or this designer or this type of quilting.
Right.
Awesome. We can bond over that. But then, yeah, at some point, it does get boring to not be challenged.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well, and to just even have your put your own voice into what you're making because like, yeah, we might like the same exact fabrics, but how I use it is going to
mhm,
look different than how you might use it, right? And they
right.
might be similar or they might be close or they might be so vastly different, but just because we like something that's the same doesn't mean that everything we do is the same thing, right? And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
using me and you as an example, but
Right.
like
Yeah.
the general you as well, like because I think that that's also a spot where maybe like groups of friends or finding your tribe or like your group of people, your, you know, your followership or whatever as a business or as a voice in the quilting community, like those differing opinions and those differing perspectives are what make you grow. Like
Yeah.
if we all just have to say like, "Oh, I only like this fabric." "Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah, me too. Okay, I'm gonna make this quilt. Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah, me too." If we're all only making it the same things with the same exact fabrics, like we're never gonna see and experience different things, like
Mhm.
and entertain like that other people have different perspectives and that's how the world works and like not
Yeah.
everybody experiences the world the same way we do. I mean, we're having this lovely chat and we're both having a great time hopefully, and I mean I am, and but we're both going to come away from it with our own perspective of it
Yeah.
and probably, overwhelmingly positive and a
Yeah.
good time, but like my view is going to be different than your view because I'm going to be thinking about myself mostly probably, and you're probably going to be thinking about yourself and how you came to it, and that's
Yeah.
how humans operate. And like
Right.
so if you
Right.
just like apply that to everything, it makes everything like you're saying, like you can take people's criticism and say, okay, thanks,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like what do you want me to do with that, like
Yeah.
you just hold it and you're like, why did you give me this?
Yeah. It's like,
It's like when your kid gives you something random, you're like, why?
yeah, you're like, "Oh, did you want me to throw this in the trash for you? Okay."
I'm not keeping this. Yeah, that's and for me that was like a really big learning curve of like, oh, I am a voice. I'm trying to be a voice in this
Yeah.
community and like give people other quilters, obviously a platform and a voice,
Yeah.
a space to voice who they are and how they show up and why they show up
Yeah.
and just getting okay, really okay with who I am And, like,
Mhm.
sure, there's bits of me that I'm kinda like, "Ugh," but I accept that those are parts of me, and
Yeah.
I accept that sometimes people don't like, I talk a lot, but guess what? I'm a professional paid yapper, so get
Yeah.
over it. Like,
Yeah. That's yeah.
I say paid, I've made like $20. It's fine. But, so yeah, I'm like, well, I'm gonna use my chattiness to my benefit to
Yeah.
hopefully try to benefit other people too. Like, I
Well,
want
yeah, I
to.
mean, yeah, your benefit has been huge. Like, I think it's been so interesting to see the podcast camp in the quilting community growing
Mhm.
because I think it's like you're doing the Lord's work in terms of connecting people with each other, like we're so inundated with 15, 20, 30-second videos on social media that's
Yeah,
just a tiny snapshot and sometimes not even accurate of the
right.
thing that we're trying to portray.
Yeah.
So you putting forth the effort and time to produce a platform that really allows people to either show up the way I am and say like, "Hi, anyone who wants to get to know me, here I am," and do my song and dance, but then
Mhm.
also giving your viewers the opportunity to listen and learn and grow to know someone in a richer context,
Yeah.
is so valuable. Like I'm thinking of as a viewer, many people that I've watched on your podcast and others that allowed me a new sense of perspective on that person that I
Mhm.
wouldn't have gotten from just scrolling through their social media. And
Yeah.
that's so valuable because I think that is the first building block into learning like empathy and kindness and connection with
Mhm.
those people. Like we
Yeah.
all just want connection, whether we're a professional or a consumer in the industry. And
Yeah.
having opportunities like that only come because people like you are putting forth the time and effort and energy into creating that space, and that's really valuable and really beneficial. So,
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
drinking your Kool-Aid,
Yes,
even if
it's
no one else
tasty.
is. No,
No,
I think you can give yourself more credit. So,
thank you.
or
I
we can
appreciate
maybe just like give a disclaimer and remind everybody that for every one biatch that feels the need to be a keyboard warrior, there's 100 other people who are
Yeah,
really, really grateful
yeah,
for the connections that are made through platforms, long form opportunities like this. So
yeah, thank
and
you.
I think I especially appreciate it because I feel like that's how I show up as a teacher. Like, I'm a
Mhm.
long burn teacher. I'm not a wham bam, thank you, ma'am. I'm like, "Let's be best friends. When you need me, call me." Like, I will give you everything I possibly can so that you can be as successful as possible, and then when you point out gaps in what I do, when you point out things that are like, this doesn't quite make sense. Can you elaborate?" Like, call me out and I will rise to the occasion to continue making it good, and like that's
Yeah,
what relationships are, especially when you're wanting something long term, which I
yeah,
am. Like I'm only 34. I still have another like 75 years of quilting ahead of me
yeah,
if I stop eating Oreos, but like I
yeah.
want I want a sustainable long-term impact so
Mhm.
that the whole community can raise together. Because
Yeah,
I'm raising no matter what. Like I
yeah,
have committed to myself that like I want to progress, whatever that looks like, however that looks.
yep,
But like if y'all want to jump on my boat and get along with me, like pick up an oar and we'll do it together.
yeah,
And I love that. I'm like, the more the merrier. The cool thing is that the boat has infinite space. Like we're never gonna run out of space. And it's up to each of us to choose to take up space and
mhm,
send sound waves out into the world. So
mhm,
I
mhm.
I love it. I'm loud and noisy and wiggly.
Yeah,
So
yeah, same. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's make each other better, and I'm like you. I've committed, like, growth is my ultimate goal. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, sometimes we're gonna have times where we just are where we're at, and that's okay. And then we're gonna have moments where we need to rise to meet the occasion, and we can either bring our best selves, like our evolved selves, or the self that we want to be
Yeah.
and that we aspire to be, or we can bring our previous versions of ourselves, and like knowing knowing where to find those versions of yourself too, I think is like so important.
Yeah.
Because I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, there's times when someone might send me a comment or they might message me or something, and I'm just like, "Who the do you think you are?" You know? But then yeah, but then it's that like, okay, how would I want someone to respond to me? Or like, what is this person even trying to tell me, you know?
Yeah.
And and yeah, for every one of those, again, there's 100 more people who are like
Mhm.
ready to row the boat with me and
Yeah.
with you and with with those of us who are trying to like, you know, raise all the boats. Like a
Yeah.
rising tide raises all boats, lifts all boats, whatever that saying is. And
Yeah.
it's true because and I don't know if you know, but the Call Her Daddy podcast. Do you know that
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
her? Well, she just had Ellen Pompeo on this week, and from Grey's Anatomy,
Yeah. Yeah.
Meredith Grey, and
Yeah.
and she was very much in that like because there was all this controversy around the times like in the you know early bits of the show when she was negotiating for higher pay and
Yeah.
I'm the main character. The show's named after my character's name. It's my voice, it's my face. I'm the one who's on, it's like this is my show and like I should be paid more. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing all the heavy lifting. And but she was also like, and everybody else should be paid the same. It wasn't like just her. She's like, but if
Mhm.
I'm gonna negotiate for higher, then everybody else needs to negotiate for higher. And she was saying the same thing. Like, you don't just get to the top and go, yay, I'm the one that's winning. You get to the top and then you reach back down and you keep pulling people up with you
Right.
because there's no sense in leaving everybody else at the bottom because then what did you get up there for? To be alone?
Right.
To be lonely, to be miserable because it's you and all your money? Okay, congratulations, but what about everybody else?
Right, right. Well,
So,
and that's the thing is if you go alone, it's not sustainable.
no.
Like, I think about that in the quilting industry. Like, I feel like this has been a big conversation, especially with Joanne's closing, right?
Ugh,
There's been
yeah,
like all of these there I realize it's a polarizing and nuanced situation because there's people that'll just be like, "Yay, Joanne's, they were the devil." And other people are like, "Joanne's, where's if it's going to go, I have nothing." Like
right.
and those are both valid, but then there's also this space in between, and, like, one thing that comes to my mind that I've been really, really deeply pondering with Joanne's closing is,
Mhm.
okay, I'm really sad that all of this affordable, accessible fabric is going away,
Yeah.
but, like, also, am I acknowledging the privilege of the fact that that fabric was accessible and affordable, and why was it affordable and accessible? And it almost kind of, like, hit me in waves that it's like, "Wait, if they can sell fabric for that cheap, how cheap did they buy it for? And where did
Mhm.
that fabric come from, and what kind of mills? And
Yeah.
was that fabric produced with slave labor or with,
Right.
exploited women and children? Was it
Mhm.
in factories that are earthquake proof? Do they have clean drinking water? Are they polluting the drinking water by making that fabric? Like,
Yeah.
all those deeper things that are like, how the crap did we get into such a high position of privilege and accessibility and affordability in the first place? And I
Mhm.
don't have all the answers to that, but I do think that there is a cause for pause in
Yeah.
that and saying
Yeah.
like, okay, first of all, acknowledge that it's a huge privilege to even be able to quilt at all. Like,
Mhm.
being a textile artist is not a necessity at all. So the
Nope.
fact that we live in a society where our needs are being met so well that we can now buy fabric even if it's $2 a yard, like, let's
Mhm.
acknowledge that and start there. But then also it's like there's a reason that that accessibility and affordability is gone because it
Mhm.
clearly wasn't sustainable.
Right.
So what does
Right.
that mean? So
Right.
anyways, sorry, that's kind of a soapbox, but like I think it's important to consider that and important to consider the sustainability and the implications of the choices that we make as quilters, both consumers as
Mhm.
well as professionals.
Mhm.
Um, and trying to do things in a sustainable way because like I think to myself like the more people I can encourage to learn how to free motion quilt, a that's my job, so
Mhm.
I'm going to be out of business if no one wants to learn how to quilt anymore. But
Yeah.
b how am I going to find people who want to learn how to free motion quilt if they can't even afford to make a quilt top or if they can't afford to um rent a quilting machine, let alone buy one, you know? And so
Mhm.
it's like there's all these different links in the supply chain that are good for all of us to remember and consider and see what impact that makes it and try to do it with sustainability in mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you can't like you said, like, you can't do that alone. Like, even if you're at the top,
Yeah.
you're standing on someone's shoulders,
Right.
and at some point, they're gonna be like, "No, thanks."
Get off me.
And yeah,
Right,
so
exactly. Yeah, Melanie said that's a deep well. It's such a deep well. There's so many things, so many different facets that are impacted. And
mhm,
you're right. I think, yeah, it's such a point of privilege to even have such accessible and affordable things for in the crafting space to then, yeah, turn around and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to afford to do this anymore. It's like, okay, well, here come all the thrift shops. Like, start
yes,
thrifting, you know,
right,
because you're right. Like, it's not sustainable to keep producing new and new and new and
mhm,
buying new and new and new because it's expensive. And if you're
yeah,
buying quality materials, it's going to be more expensive because of better treatment in the mills and better treatment of the employees and better, higher
right,
quality materials and content of the things being made. And so it's like a slippery slope of like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What
yeah,
about this? Like
yeah,
the impact of all of it. And I think too, like you're saying, like if people can't afford to make a quilt top, well, the gorgeous thing about long arm quilting or just quilting in general is that you can stitch on just plain fabric. You
yeah,
can dismantle old clothes and crudely stitch them together if that's what it's going to take. You can sew by hand. You don't need a machine.
right,
Even you all summer were showing off that you were hand quilting some of your graffiti designs onto fabric. Like
mhm,
you had a hoop and you had some crazy awesome thread and you hand quilted your graffiti designs onto fabric.
mhm,
So it's not even that you need a machine to achieve that look and that visual. Yeah, look at that.
yeah,
So freaking cool.
and doing embroidery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just like the concept of it all. And I think that's it is like, I know hand quilting is kind of coming back for some people and they're really like trying it out and like really liking it, which is awesome. I think that
yeah,
handwork and slowing ourselves down intentionally,
mhm, mhm,
having those like meditation and mindfulness moments is so important. And
yeah,
as makers, we need that because it can be very like, oh, I need to go buy all this new fabric. Oh, I need to make all these new patterns. Oh, I need to do all this. It's like,
yeah,
you can just stitch. Like, you can just
yeah,
stitch. Like, you don't
yeah,
have to do it all new. But anyway, like, I think the sustainability piece is really key. And like having skills, just because you have skills doesn't mean you have to use them for other people either. Like,
right,
you
yep,
can learn to graffiti quilt and long arm quilt and all those things for just yourself, and it's okay. You don't have to
mhm,
justify, "Oh, I need to make a business." You don't have to. Like, just because
right,
some of us did, because 'cause we're crazy millennials who don't know how to
yeah,
not do that, um, like, monetize our hobbies,
yeah,
you don't have to, and, like, I'm here to tell you it's okay not to because that's one, like, contentious piece of all this is that my hobby is now the thing that makes me money,
mhm,
and I think the podcast has become like, even though I'm like starting to get monetized now, I'm starting to have like ad revenue, which is so great. So if you're watching this, please just let the ads play. I know it's tempting to skip them because they're so annoying, but it helps me. So please help me. Um, but I've done this for years without any pay because I love it. Because I just
mhm,
want to. I love talking to people and I love learning from people. And so finding like-minded humans, even if they're not that like-minded, but finding a common ground and finding out who people are behind their Instagram page, behind their curated, beautiful
mhm,
photographs. I'm like, who are you though? Like, what brought you into this space and why are you still here? Like, and I love that you just like you come to everything just as you. Like, I don't ever feel like I get a different Karlee.
oh,
Like,
thanks,
whether we're on camera or we're in person or we're texting or whatever, like, I feel like I'm always getting you, and, like, that's what I hope people get from me, like, I hope they know that if how I am right here, this is how I'm gonna be in person. Like, you're gonna see this in real life. Like, this is who I
Mhm.
am, and I want people to have the space to do that same thing. And so I feel like within your class, even though you're telling us like this is how you make this shape, there's still so much room within all of that to like
Mhm.
customize. And yes, the practice is kind of like, okay, well, we're all kind of doing the same thing, but everybody's practice kind of ends up different too in that same
Right.
space. Like
Right.
we all draw differently. We all have different like emphasis on where a
Yep.
certain curve is going to go and like how points are going to
Mhm.
come together. And so no two projects are the same, even if we start out with the same intentions or the same
Right.
basic shapes. Like there's still so much room for customization within that and
Totally.
to let your
Yeah.
voice shine. And so,
Yeah. Well, and that's my goal as a teacher. I'm not teaching you how to quilt like me. I'm teaching you how to quilt like you.
mhm,
I'm teaching you how to find within yourself what your voice is, what your muscles will do, how your muscles move the machine, how your muscles draw those designs so that you can be your creative self and not a copy of anybody else, myself included. I don't want everyone to, in fact, I really don't want everyone to be able to quilt like me. Like
yeah, right.
that, because that's my own voice, in the sense that like it's non-duplicatable. That's the intrinsic value that I have as an artist
Mhm,
aside from being a teacher. And I know within the depths of my soul that we all have that same like pot of gold that is our own currency. It's our own, our own orientation of currency
yeah,
that is there. And my
mhm,
job is to keep saying, like, keep digging, you can do it. And that's one of the beautiful things about graffiti quilting is that it's about it's so built on building your own toolbox that everyone it's like handwriting in the
yeah,
sense that nobody's handwriting is the same as anyone else's. Your
mhm,
signature is unique to you. And then when you go out into the world and you make those gorgeous quilts, they only exist because your body did that, because you were here, because you lived, because you take up space as a human. And this is proof of that. Like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, it like gives me the chills because it's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing to think about. Like, the way I talk about the book being a manifestation of my knowledge of free motion quilting,
mhm,
everybody's quilts is a manifestation of their knowledge and their body existing and being alive and breathing in and out and their muscles contracting and expanding and moving.
yeah,
And it's so cool to see that in tangible physical form.
yeah,
And that like it just is so like I am honored to witness that as a teacher. I think that's one of the coolest parts about being a free motion quilting teacher is that I get to just sit back and be like, "You did that. Like that was not me. I wasn't behind you like Patrick Swayze and Ghost making you do stuff." Like as
yeah,
much as I would love to do that if you asked me to, I probably would. But
yeah,
like that was all you, baby. And
mhm,
that's the
yeah,
coolest thing to be able to witness. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and just being the one to experience like the success of trying those things, it's like, "Oh my god, when I made a feather." I've tried making feathers. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it." And so when you were like, "Hey, we're working on feathers," like, in one of the classes, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
damn it, like, this is not gonna go well." But, like, I made like, the first one was kinda janky, and I was like, that's okay," and so I went
Yep.
back and, like, drawing it, I was like, "Okay, I get this," 'cause, I'm drawing in my sketchbook and, like, practicing
Mhm.
the motions, and then I'm like, "Okay, my machine," and I'm like, We're gonna make this work," and just getting to experience that, like, that euphoria, that dopamine rush of, I made a feather, and it looked like a feather,
Yeah.
and it was successful, and so it didn't look like yours, it looked like mine. It looked like
Mhm.
what I would make and what I will continue to make because it had my signature and my handwriting essentially, because that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
when you're free motion quilting, it's like your handwriting. And
Right.
that's when I was teaching long arming certification classes at one of my local shops. Like I would tell people the same exact thing because 'cause they're, like, following the paper pantographs with, like, the lasers on the backside of the machine, and I'm like they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so wiggly." I'm like, "But that's you. That's you
Yeah.
in that quilt now. It's not,
Mhm.
like, it's not you're not printing this paper and putting it on top of the quilt and following, like and people aren't gonna be holding up this paper and comparing your quilt to that, like,
Right.
that's you in that quilt, and your granddaughter or your grandson or your sister or your niece or your husband or your brother, like, whoever you're giving this to, they're not gonna look at that little wobble and be like, "Ugh, I can't believe they did that." They're gonna be like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my grandma or my aunt or my sister," she's like, You made this for me?" It's like,
Yeah.
that's you in
And
that
if they
quilt.
do that, you write them out of the will, like,
They don't
immediately.
get you snatch that quilt back and you run. Yeah,
Yeah.
you write them out of the will. They're not allowed to
Yeah.
you don't invite them to the cookout.
Yeah. You pull their tuition.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. Don't worry, this will be posted so you can watch back from the beginning. She said,
So,
"Dang, we're seeing this live."
I wanna ask you, now
Mhm.
having been through at least the majority of the class, I know that you're still working through it, but I wanna ask you,
Yes.
what were you apprehensive to start?
Mhm.
And if so, why? Like,
Um,
was there, something that was causing you a little bit of anxiety at the beginning, and how do you feel now about that anxiety? I'd love kind of a snapshot of before and after, and kind of what
yeah,
particular part in the class helped you overcome that.
for sure. Well, I definitely it, I have like the I don't want to like put it in a box like this, but it does feel very boxy of like that like eldest daughter millennial. I must be good at the very the ADHD kind of like I need to be good at everything I try immediately or I'm never going to again.
Mhm.
Um and more than anything, I just want to be really successful. So any anxiety I have about starting something or if I'm like kind of scared to do something, first of all, through lots of therapy, I've learned that that's like a good place to go. And like if I'm scared of trying something, it's like, well, then I need to try that thing because I'm clearly like missing out on something if it's making me nervous. And so free motion has always been something that I've really wanted to like dive into more of because I've only ever done just like stippling or like loopy swoops or I've like I write in quilts a lot like lettering, but it's
Mhm.
like my own cursive, it's nothing like
Yeah.
no, it is. It looks great. I have really good cursive. Hi Josh. And
Mhm.
so the nervousness was just from within myself of like I have really high standards for myself. I've really um yeah, it's hard for me to not be good at something if I am trying it for the first time because I'm like really good at a lot of things, which is
Yeah.
how I'm hardwired, I guess. I don't know. Thank you, mom and dad. I don't know. Anyway, but then within the class, first of all, I know you, so, like and I knew you beforehand, so I was kinda like, "Well, if Karlee" just how sure and confident you are about it kind of, like, eased me in because you were like, "No, you can do this." Like, there's never been a moment where you're like, "Well, it might be a little bit hard, but it's okay." Like, you were like, "Bad bitch, sit down, you're gonna be just
Yeah.
fine." Like, you never ever give an ounce of, like, questionable energy of, like you never give anybody or me you never give your students space to question themselves to say I don't know you're like no, no, you do know and you're going to be just fine like
Mm.
here's the steps again here's what we're going to do to work through this it's like we sketch it out on paper first and it's like all the steps to get there I think really is what made me go, "I can draw this on paper. I can draw it with a needle and thread." It's the
Yeah.
same thing. I mean, obviously not the same thing because, like, how
Right.
you move fabric through a sit-down machine versus how you move the sew head on a long arm machine, you know?
Yeah.
And my long arm, she's hefty. She's a big girl. So,
Mhm.
small things are not her
Yeah.
forte unless it's like a digital pantograph
Right.
and the belts are moving it. But if I'm trying to do tiny stuff, she's like, "I
Yeah.
don't do that. I don't move that fast."
Yeah.
Um,
So I did wanna ask too, with, like, you're talking about your inclination is, like, you wanna be perfect at it right
Mhm,
away.
mhm.
Is that inclination also paired with biting off more than you can chew?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
so I wonder, when you started the class, did it feel like it was that the information was coming at you too quickly? That it was
No,
like I was forcing you to bite off more than you could chew?
no, absolutely not,
Oh,
and I
good,
think that was
good.
another piece of what kind of calmed me down is, like, you eased it in so well that, like, and there was a couple times that I wasn't able to join the live, but I went back later and I still just sitting through and watching the video and following along in the book and, like, using the resources that you give, I was like, "Oh, oh, okay." Like,
Good, good.
but because I think when you zoom out big picture and you see the work you've created and you see the quilts that you've
Yeah,
quilted and you
like
see
from back
all of it
here.
together, yeah, like, looking at that, I'm like, "Fuck that, I could never do that." Sorry for the F-bomb, but, um, I mean, I'm
It's
not sorry, I
warranted.
cuss, it's
It's
fine.
warranted.
Um, but looking at that, my brain's like, "I can't do that." But the
Yeah.
way you
But
break
then
it
you, like,
down,
zoom in and it's like,
right,
"Oh, what's
there,
there?"
yeah, it's the elements and the because you break it down so well and, like, the spiral effect of, like, you start in the middle and you work your way around that central circle and you add these different motifs and different styles and the fillers and the way it's broken down and the way that it's approached made it feel like, "Oh, I can." It's just one little thing at a time. It's like zooming
Yeah,
in, like you just
yeah.
did, holding it up close to the camera. You look at one little bit at a time, it's not so overwhelming.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
that's how the class is broken down, and I felt really like that alone, just like I don't wanna say slow start in terms of, like, boring, but slow start in terms of, like, here's how you're gonna set yourself up for success to do this class. You're
mhm.
gonna need a notebook and a sketchbook. I used my sketchbook as both because there was, like, a million pages in it, so I knew I was
Yeah.
gonna have the space to sketch and write.
Mhm,
Um, you know, pencils, different colored pens if you wanted to, you know, color code your layers as we added them each class session. Oh, I freaking
mhm.
love that. The thread.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because that's what I tried to do, so I'm
Yeah,
glad that
it
it
worked.
kind of
It's working.
translated that way. Like, I tell my students in the very first class, I
Mhm.
tell my students, like, "I'm gonna show you all these quilts, and you're gonna look at them and be like, 'Oh my gosh, she's so amazing, I could never do that. She was just born with it, and she sold her soul to the devil, and that's why she's good at quilting.'" Which is, like, awesome. I love that reaction, by the way, like,
Right,
I'm
right.
happy to get reactions like that, that people just think I freaking walk on water with
Yeah,
a quilting machine,
right?
but then I tell my students, "By the end of this class, you are gonna be way less enamored by me because you're gonna know instead, you're gonna be, like, appreciative of the amount of work that goes into this because you'll be doing those same steps,"
Right.
and
Yeah,
being able to look at that same quilt that first, made them pass out,
yeah.
they're gonna see it and just say, "Okay, I know exactly what she did there and there and there," because it's
Mhm.
almost like I'm teaching this language, teaching you
Yeah,
the language of how to see those shapes, and instead of being
yes.
like, "Oh, it's like a swirly loopy thing, and then like a blah, 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 like just a shape that's kinda like this,"
Mhm.
you'll say like, "Oh, that's a feather, that's a leaf, that's a curl,
Right.
that's a flower petal, that's an arrow, that's a hook," and all
Yeah,
of this vocabulary that comes along with it that is almost like this thing that stops you from being so, like, fangirly and
yes.
more just like, "I know exactly what she did, and I also know how hard or easy that thing was, so it's
Yeah.
just like, respect?"
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you get that as well, and then you show your quilts to your friends, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she sold her soul to the devil, she's so
yeah,
amazing, I could never do that."
yeah,
And then you're like, okay, cool. Yep."
yeah,
And you accept the compliment and you say, "Thank you. I take up
yeah.
space and I worked damn hard to
Mhm,
be a this good at quilting." And
mhm.
yeah, and I want my students to confidently take that out into the world and say like, "No, I was not born with this. There's
Yeah,
no like muscle gene that makes you good at moving a quilting machine. It's
no.
literally 100% practice."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like, own it and accept it and be confident and, like, give yourself the damn credit that you
Yeah,
deserve.
yeah, honestly. Cynthia said, "Is the class beginner friendly?" I say yes. as
I
having
agree.
never done quilting in that style, and I never quilted on my domestic machine before, but I did the whole class on my domestic,
Mhm.
'cause I had the it has the capability, so as long as you can drop your feed dogs and you have,
Yep.
the right foot, um,
Right.
you then you can do it. I was successful, I think because Karlee, you break it down you break it down so well, and just like we've been saying, like, it seemed like, yeah, you're looking at these and, like, freaking out, like, "How am there's no way I'm ever gonna be able to quilt like that," but the way it's
Mhm.
broken down and the way that you talk about each element and each kind
Mhm.
of motif on its own and how we practice each thing, and once you get the hang of it, it's like you can see how they combine, or you can see how some become fillers
Right.
and some, it's like you start to break it down. And just like you were saying, now I see those things and I'm like, oh my gosh, they did that technique, or they did it
Right.
this, they boxed it in, or they, the different way, like they did a grid or whatever, like
Yeah.
the different ways that you also teach us to approach different
Mhm.
layouts. Like
Right.
how do you plan a whole
Right.
quilt? Not just like, okay, we're working on this, you
Mhm.
know, circle essentially, like we're
Right.
spiraling ourselves out, but like how do you apply it to across a whole quilt? And so that
Yeah.
breakdown also is so helpful, because that has also been a big thing for me, is like thinking about a whole quilt ahead of time is like,
Right.
what the like, and I've
Mhm.
done it. I've
Mhm.
I've done it. Like one of the very
Yeah.
first quilts that my mom and I took in as a long arming business. No, I shouldn't say one of the very first ones. We were probably like a year and a half or 2 into the business before, but this lady brought us her the, who is it? Judy Niemeyer, the dinner plate
Mm.
dahlia,
Mm.
king size dinner plate dahlia, and she's like, "I want this custom quilted," and we were like, "Absolutely," and she gave it to us, and we were like, "Holy shit, what do we do now?" And so, it was a mix of like not hand quilting, but like free motion and digital. But it was like we had to plan the whole thing
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
we could start, because we needed to know what we were doing, where we are going, and so but you give so many different ways of breaking up quilts or breaking up the
Yeah.
space
Mhm.
for planning purposes that, like, make it w way less intimidating to approach.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
appreciated that too.
Good. Yeah. I have the same like anxiety when I see a whole list of steps, I get
Mhm.
anxious and I get scared. And so that's another hallmark of graffiti quilting is you plan out just enough to keep you going,
Yeah,
but not so much that you get scared, but not so little that you have no direction.
right.
Um so, like, to the question of is it beginner friendly? Is the class beginner friendly? I would say there are certain things that either A, I can't teach you or that I refuse to teach you that you
Mhm.
need to know. So, the things that I refuse to teach you, I'm not going to teach you how your machine works.
Right.
There are so many different quilting machines. So, like, please read your manual as it pertains to free motion quilting. Make sure you know what the buttons do. But that's the extent of it. Like, if you just bought a quilting machine, or a sewing machine that allows you to free motion quilt and you've dropped your feed dogs, that's what you need to know. And then I can start from there. The
Mhm.
things that I can't teach you is discipline and desire for your craft. So, what I need my beginning students to show up with is just a desire to learn and a willingness to not give up. Because the first step of the journey, it's going to feel daunting. It's going to feel like you're looking at a mountain. Sometimes your quilting machine is going to feel like this big, giant, scary monster that you're
Mhm.
kind of scared to touch. And I'm going
Mhm.
to teach you how to touch your machine in a way that you'll build a relationship so that your machine can kind of be tamed and work for you. So
Mhm.
whether you see it as a dragon or a wild horse, I'm going to help you figure out how to tame it so that it can become your biggest asset and
Mhm.
the tool that you do not have to fight with ever. But you got to read your manual to know what buttons to push, right?
Yeah.
But everything else, so like let me tell you about the book a little bit because that will show you how I've broken the class out. So there's 10 chapters in the book. The first chapter talks about all the different tools and materials. So sometimes it's like, okay, I just spent $20,000 on a quilting machine. Now
Mhm.
what? I have this fabric, I have this fabric, I have this thread, I have this thing from this other project. What do I do next? So the first chapter of the book is talking all about tools and materials. So um We talk about like hardware, so the tools of like what type of quilting machine, like what is a long arm quilting machine, what is a sit down quilting machine, what is a domestic, what the heck are these feed dogs that I have to keep feeding that you're talking about, right?
Mhm.
We talk about all of that. So um sit down machines, stand up long arm machine, domestic sewing machines, hand quilting, hand embroidery, sketchbooks, sketch pens, marking your fabric, different marking supplies, how to do graffiti quilting with like Sharpies, paint pens, specialty markers, paints. Like I painted a mural with the
Yes.
graffiti quilting style. So it's like all the different avenues that you can do there. And then fabric types. So there's like quilting cotton, silk, satin, fleece, plush, cork, leather. And I have like samples of all of these things.
Mhm.
And then again, those QR codes, it's like if you want to see that really close, you look at it on the page and then you scan the code and there's a bunch more photos and videos of it.
Mhm.
Um, so part one is all about tools and materials, how to choose what, um, and when to choose what, right? Because there's not a
Yeah.
lot of right and wrong. It's just if and when
Mhm.
with the different materials that you can use.
Mhm.
And then the second, okay, so I will die on the hill with my students,
Yes.
making sure they are not afraid of their bobbin case. Okay. So
Yeah.
I know that everybody's grandma threatened to cut our fingers off if we ever touch the bobbin case. I'm officially giving permission to my students to touch their bobbin case. So I die on the hill of making sure my students understand what the heck tension is,
Mhm.
because you can have the most beautiful shapes. You can be the best at drawing, but if you are fighting with your quilting machine and your stitches look terrible, all of it is for naught, right?
Yeah.
It just means that you're a good artist and a bad quilter. So
Yep.
my job is to make you a good artist and a good quilter. So
Mhm.
part two alone is just a whole free motion quilting boot camp on understanding tension, how to baste your quilt together so that you don't have to fight with your quilt top. I show you my favorite way to load a quilt on a long arm quilting machine if you're using a stand up. And so that is so super important. So even just chapter 1 and chapter 2 have really nothing to do with graffiti quilting, nothing to do with the artistic endeavors that we're gonna go on, but they are the foundational blocks that set you up for success so that when you get into the artistry, you're not yelling swear words at your machine. You're not mad at the cheap thread that you bought that kept breaking. You don't regret the whole quilt later because you used the wrong kind of batting, you know? So those foundational building blocks are so important so that you can start a good relationship with the actual shapes of the artwork that you're going to be learning, right?
Mhm.
So that's chapters 1 and 2, and then there's another 8 chapters that really dive into the artistry, the design work, the design principles. It really is broken down. It's like just take it a page at a time, and even if it takes you 5 years, so be it. Like
Mhm.
I again, like I don't want people to think what you thought delusionally about yourself at the beginning of class, that you're going to be perfect on the first day, because
Right.
nobody is, you know. I just
No.
have the luxury of like not showing people my beginning work, but like, you know, you
Yeah.
get to see the pretty polished stuff that I've done, and
Right.
I get to like bashfully hide all of the terrible projects that got me where I am. But
Right.
I'm going to acknowledge and not judge that we all have those, right?
Right.
So you're
Right.
going to have those, and that's beautiful and it's fine. And I also encourage my students at the beginning of class to timestamp their work. So, like when they do their very first graffiti quilting practice,
Mhm.
I tell them just like write on it somewhere the date. And then same with their sketchbook. Like when they start a new sketchbook, write the date at the beginning,
Yeah.
because they're gonna probably hate a lot of the work they do at the beginning, but
Mhm.
then when they look back at it, they're gonna be so grateful that they have, like, a journal to see that progress that they
Mhm.
of all those steps that they took. It's like a pedometer for your brain, for your
Yeah.
artistic brain, and
Yeah.
so I think that's really valuable as well, is, like, acknowledging where you came from in your creative journey. Like and I have a lot of students that, like, will be working on a mini quilt in class.
Yeah.
This happened especially often when I would do a 2-day in-person workshop when I was
Mm.
traveling to teach. The first day, the students would be halfway through their quilts, and they'd be like, "Oh, I hate this, like, I can't overstitch a perfect line." Like, that's a big thing with graffiti quilting is overstitching, and a lot of people will be like, "I can't hit the same line twice." And so
Okay.
they'll be frustrated on the first day,
Mhm.
And then I'll tell everyone, like, "Go home, eat a good meal, have a good night's sleep. You're probably gonna dream about graffiti quilting. You're gonna dream about this view that's been in your mind and the shapes that we've learned. But then tomorrow, I want you to look at your quilt from 10 feet away, and
Mhm.
you're gonna be very pleasantly surprised with
Mhm.
what you did the day before." So, it's almost like this, like,
Yeah.
washing over where if, like, you have to zoom out a little bit sometimes
Yeah.
and and appreciate the thing for what it is as a whole
Yeah.
instead of nitpicking all of those little things. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's beginner friendly, um, but you just gotta please not give up because it does get easier with each practice. Like
Mhm.
you're never going to be a worse quilter than you are right now, and it's just going to get better. Every practice session is just going to get better. So,
Right.
um, but you got to get through that nitty gritty first learning stuff that none
Yeah.
of us want to admit is a real thing, but is
Yeah.
very much a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, I called it a slow start, but it's those like basic fundamentals. Like here's all these different types of fabric. Here's
Yeah,
the different battings, how they're going to interact. So if you're not really super familiar with those things, then it's a good place. And it is a good reminder too for those like I quilt almost every single day. I'm on my machine almost every single day. So like I'm very familiar with how things interact. I'm very
right.
familiar. Like me and my machines have a very intimate relationship because I'm
Yeah.
all up in their business all day, every
Mhm.
day. Like,
Yeah.
so, but I also think like it's important to sit and be reminded of those things too. And like to not think that like, oh, I'm above all this, so I'm not going to listen. It's like, nope, I'm going to just show up and participate. And maybe you'll say something that reminds me like, oh, right, I need to do that thing. Or like, oh, yeah, like just the talk about tension, I think is so wild. And just like, yeah, you have to adjust your tension for different types of threads and like how you're
Mhm.
going to wind your bobbin and all this stuff. And I think it's so easy to just like, well, I just load it on my machine and it winds it for me. It's like, yeah, but what kind of thread are you using? It's like, I know as my long
Right.
arm, even when I'm just doing like normal edge to edge, if I change the thread that's in my bobbin or even on the top thread, like I have to adjust my tension. And so
Mhm.
why wouldn't you do that for anything else? So I think it's just a
Right.
good reminder and yeah, like if as long as you know how your machine works,
Mhm.
then that is yeah, you need that jumping off point at least. And then the
Yeah.
rest you can learn. Like the rest you
Right.
can can start the class with. But
Yeah. Well, and even that, it's like if you just jumped into the class, having a willingness to do some research will
yeah,
go a long way too. Like, I'm not saying you have to know every single button and every single function and every single stitch and all the different thread types that you could possibly put in.
right,
But what I will not do is tech support on people's machines.
right.
So
Yeah,
out of like so it's like if that's the disclaimer that I don't offer in the class, then I think that's pretty good. Like
yeah, yeah.
if that's the only thing that I'm not willing to do, because if I was fixing people's machines all day, we couldn't focus on the class. So
Right, exactly. And that's not what we're there for. We're not in the class to learn how to use our machines. We're
it's
in
learning how
that
to use
place.
your arms.
It's learning how to, yeah, use your arms, use your artistry, like use your machine for your artistry versus like, I don't know what this button does. You're like, okay, where's your manual? It's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
on you. That's on
Yeah.
us as the class, the
Yeah.
the students is to know those things so that when we come to the class, we're able to focus on the artistry. We're able to
Right.
focus on the learning piece of like learning how to create these motifs and learning how to create
Mhm.
this quilting style so that yeah, we're not troubleshooting which button
Right.
to push or why my
Right.
bobbin's not winding right or what. And it's like, no, that's a different thing.
Right.
That's not this
Right.
class.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I think is so important about that is I think that sometimes people confuse their skills
Mhm.
with their machine, right? So
Mhm.
like that's just again like the thing I want to avoid is I don't want someone to try to just start doing the artistic free motion quilting and they can't even do a curve, not because their arms don't do it, but because their thread breaks.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want anyone to blur the lines between how they feel about themselves as an artist versus how they feel about their hardware and their tools, because
Right.
those are separate things. And so
Yeah.
that's I think why I'm so adamant of saying like we do need to build a foundation that is not artistic at all,
Mhm.
because that's like the thing that's going to give the artistry the space to shine.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to make a beautiful quilt, but it's another thing to make a beautiful quilt that has the perfect thread type and the perfect colors and is the perfect like stiffness for what you want it to be and is the perfect size because you kind of planned out the size enough to know,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
again, it goes back to like planning just enough to be confident with each step that you take. You don't have to know every single step, but you can show up to that step with confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
love that, and too, as we move through the motifs and learn the different shapes and things, like, the space you give us as the learners to, like, problem solve where to put them within our own
mhm.
design, because you're like, "Well, I'm gonna put mine here, but wherever it fits on yours." Like, because
Right.
my starting spiral looked different than yours, and then my
Yeah.
starting, leaf
Mhm.
and feather, whatever we started with, like, those all look different than yours, but
Right.
we're still working on the same thing, but, like, the placement ended up being different because of
Right.
just where I ended up in that circle, in that
Mhm.
spiral, and, like, where things needed to be filled and how large and how small I made certain things. So, like,
Mhm.
even within that space, like, you hold space for all of us
Mhm.
learners to express and experience each step in the way that works with how we're doing it, how we're
Yeah.
approaching it. So I felt like
Yeah.
that was like a really cool aspect of it too, was like I never felt like I was messing up just because
Mhm.
my motif went in a different spot than yours,
Yeah.
because it was still adding to the design. I was still practicing that motif.
Right.
I was still learning that technique,
Mhm.
that concept,
Exactly.
but it got translated in my handwriting instead of your
Right.
handwriting. So
Exactly. And no one's gonna be comparing my quilt to your quilt.
no,
Like, no one's gonna see those side by side.
no.
And one thing that I did change too about the 2025 class that's a little different than the 2024 class is
Mhm.
I wanted to provide even more time and
Mhm.
space between classes. So in your cohort, it was every other week,
Mhm.
and now I'm doing it once a month.
Oh,
So
okay.
so it's really like I think it's just another way to kinda loosen the tension of,
Mhm.
like, staying on track, but
Yeah.
this track is long, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that will help as well too with students, but again, like, you being in the 2024 cohort, you still have access to not only the long form class sessions, but I have since taken all of those Facebook Live videos and put them back into the QR codes.
Yeah.
So whether you watch them long form on Facebook or later on when the Facebook group is closed and watch them subject based on which QR code you scan,
Mhm.
it's like it's just organized and compartmentalized into such a structure that just makes it like just like ready when you are sort of.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And I love
yeah.
that because I think sometimes, like, I don't wanna sit through the whole thing. I just wanna look at this concept, and you've, like,
Mhm.
gone through and chalked it
Exactly.
all up for us so that we
Yeah.
can go back and just review the
Mhm.
moments of the class that talked about that one thing, or, like,
Yeah.
that one concept, instead of, sitting through the 3 or 4 hours
Exactly.
again.
Yeah.
But and I think I like that you're giving people more time, because I think, yeah, every other week, especially, like, because I'm like, for me, and I don't know how other people feel, so I can only speak for my own experience, but for me, it did feel kind of like, oh shoot, I didn't have time to get to that homework or
Right.
whatever, because I am quilting and sewing
Right.
all day every day as my job, but um
Mhm.
so I think more space seems like a cool idea, because it
Yeah.
is, I think, too, getting over the nerves of just jumping in and trying it, and
Mhm.
to even just start those first, like, homework projects. I was like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I always, like, hesitate, and that fear of failure is kind of ever present in those moments. But I think, too, maybe the spacing out can give people a little more time to work with that feeling,
Yeah.
and practice more in between,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I think
Well, and
that's
I've also found that there's a lot of conceptualization happening. Like,
yeah.
even when people are not at their machine, they're
Mhm.
thinking about those concepts. And
Mhm.
sometimes just having time to sit with and think about is good and helpful.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, lets it sink in, lets it process in your brain and kind of
mhm.
solidify, and that's so
Yep.
cool, and yeah, I'm definitely I I need to practice more, but just still seeing, like, my practice piece and what I've done so far and, like, knowing that I always have access to that, I think is, like, also gives me, like, the, like, relief that, like, I'm not gonna be missing out on anything just because I don't finish it by a certain date, and, like, I know we
Yeah.
already kinda talked about this, but just to, like, reiterate, like, there's no pressure to have everything done at an exact time,
Mhm.
because once you're in a class, like, once you're in a cohort, you're gonna have access to the
Right.
materials, and
Yeah.
you can go rewatch the class lives, you can go use the QR codes in the book to help you
Mhm.
access those bits of information again,
Yep.
and I thought it was just
Yeah.
such a smart way to, like, to set that up, because I think that is, like, that can be a stressful bit of taking
Yeah.
classes, especially online, is like, "Oh my gosh, what if I missed something, or if,
Right.
I didn't hear something correctly and I need to go back and, like, re-listen," like, you know,
Mhm.
not every not every online class is gonna give you access like that, so it
Right.
just feels like you're really, from a class participant perspective, it feels like you're just giving so much, because, like, I trust that you want me to be successful because of how
Mhm.
much you're giving and how much you're allowing yourself, like, us to have a piece of you anytime we want. It's not, like, always live, it's not always, like, face to face or whatever, but you've given so much and you've designed so much to set up for success that, like, we can't fail. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
as class
Or
takers.
if you fail, it's not my fault.
Right. Like, you've done everything, and if I fail, it's
Yeah.
because I'm not doing something on
Or
my end. It's not because you
yeah.
didn't explain it, or that you haven't provided the materials, or that you haven't given me access to everything I
Yeah.
need. It's
Well, and
that
maybe I don't even wanna say it's failed, it's just that
no.
you haven't succeeded to the level that you want yet.
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
again, like, it's open-ended. So
Right.
it's not pass fail, it's pass succeed, succeed beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say the only sense of urgency that I can give to those who are watching this is to sign up now
Yeah.
versus later, because
Yes.
the only thing that's going to change that could be seen as negative is over time, the price is going to go up. So,
Yeah.
right now, it's an early bird pricing for 549. It's never going to be cheaper than that ever
Yeah.
again. But the benefit to that is it's never going to have less content than it does right now. It's
Right.
only going to grow. And the minute you pay your registration, you are locked into that's what you pay for this entire content that's going to continue growing. So really I want you to look at it as an investment. You're investing in your quilting future. You're investing in a curriculum that is only going to get more valuable, and so, really, the sooner you sign up, the better. So, even if you're like, "Oh, this year is not good for me, but I know I want to take it," sign up now because next year it's just going to be a little more expensive. So,
Mhm.
that's the nature of business and the nature of inflation, really.
Right.
So yeah, so I would say that's the only sense of urgency is the sooner you sign up, the better. Because even when you sign up for the class, our first live class session isn't until July, but
Mhm.
you will get your book and your welcome package within a couple weeks of signing up, and you can start your journey at whatever pace is comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the only sense of urgency is if you want to get it for the absolute best financial deal, the sooner the better, always.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And I advise that too, just, like, having the book and having all my stuff, and, like, being able to, like, get my sketchbook and get all the, like, things together that I needed to start the class, so that when that first live came up, I was like, "I have it all, I'm ready to go."
Mhm.
And, like, the that kind of stress was gone because I had time to set it all up. I had
Right.
time to, like, make sure I got everything I needed. I had
Mhm.
fabric and batting and all this stuff set
Mhm.
aside that I knew I could play with, and because I kinda zoomed through the beginning of the book and, like,
Yeah.
read through some of that, I was like, "Okay, there's gonna be opportunities to practice with different types of material and, like, different types of thread," and so that was
Yeah.
kind of fun to see ahead of time because then it was like, "Oh, I can plan, like, I know where those things are so that when it was time to grab them, they were accessible," and just that, like, pre-planning of, like, setting myself up to be successful, and I think as a
Right.
student, you wanna set yourself up for success, and you by signing up early, you give the participants that
Yeah.
heads up and that opportunity to, like, we're not going to be scrambling for stuff because you're going to have time to plan ahead of time, and even
Exactly.
if you take the first class, do get on the first live, and then you've got that time in between the next one, you've got more time to even set yourself up then. But it's like
Yep.
I'm like the student who wants to show up to class with everything I need so that
Mhm.
I don't have to scramble afterwards. Like, send me the syllabus a month ahead of time, you know what I mean? Like, I was
Yeah.
like always like back, like, packed and ready to go every single school year, like, showing up to class, like, that's who I am, but,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I loved the, like, readiness aspect of that, and yeah, getting your hands on that book, I was like, "Oh my god, this thing is magical." It is huge, and it does feel daunting, but like you said, you've broken it up into chapters, and there's, like, the different QR codes and the different kind of, like, checkpoints of homework assignments and things to do. And it makes it all very approachable and accessible as you work through the class. So I love that. And
Yeah.
so,
Thank
um,
you.
what does Josh say? Josh said, "For what you pay, what Carly's giving at the cost is incredible, worth every single dollar. Carly is an
No.
example of excellence in empowering quilters and artistry." Yes, Josh. Yes,
Thank
absolutely. Snaps,
you.
snaps, snaps. Yes,
Oh,
yes, 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 yes.
you're
That's
too kind.
exactly right. I agree. I think even even at the higher prices, like, the work that you have put into designing this class is just so evident, and it is worth every single penny that goes into it because, like you said, like, we've been talking about, like, everything that I've paid for previously, like, I now have access to stuff, more future stuff and
Yeah.
improvements, and I still have access to the class content, and I have access to
Right.
you as my teacher, and
Yeah.
I
Like, speaking of, so you were in the 2024 cohort.
yes.
In the final class session, do you remember that we started this quilt?
Yes.
Okay, so I finished this quilt after that class ended, and
Oh,
I recorded all of the stitching, and
yeah.
now I'm in the process of putting it into the QR codes of the book. So this is a good example of getting more content even
Yeah,
after the cohort has graduated.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's just one
Ooh, I
of the
love it.
many examples of, I'm constantly creating new content and recording my stitches and editing my videos and polishing them up to look nice and beautiful and enjoyable to watch. So yeah,
Yeah,
so it's I'm not going anywhere. It's just going to keep on growing and um yeah,
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So,
So awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you for getting on here and
Thank
chatting with me
Yeah,
and
likewise.
talking about your class. And well, this video will get shared out. It'll be on my YouTube channel, so we can share that link out with people if they weren't able to join us today. But and then I'll put
Perfect.
the sign up link for the class in the show notes as well, or in the
Yep.
description as well, so people can go read about it on your website and sign up. And it's just so much fun. It's so worth it. And I mean, yeah, as a person who's on their long arm and on their machines every day, it's like something I think about all the time. Like, oh, I could
Yeah.
quilt up this little piece really quick and, like, make something
Mhm.
cute with it. And now that I have, like, the skill base and the ability to, like, always go back into my book, like, it just gives me the comfort of knowing, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just like, "Oh, I hope I took really good notes in class because that's all I've
Right.
got." Like, no, I have
Mhm.
a textbook. I have the Bible of Carly, and like,
The gospel
and
according to Carly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, it's comforting knowing that, like, I'm never gonna be without your support as one of
Mhm.
your former students and current. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
always learning from you because you're always doing such amazing, cool, innovative things, and
thank you.
it's exciting. So yeah, thank you again so much for being on here today.
Yeah,
And if anybody has more questions, you can always DM me. You can DM Karlee, I'm sure,
yep,
and we're happy to answer the questions for you. And yeah, we'll uh, we'll keep pushing this class out because it's so exciting, and
yeah,
I want more
I'm
people to
super
take it.
excited. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. We had a lot of good signups at QuiltCon,
Oh, good.
so some excitement there, and, yeah, so the first live class session is July 12th.
Okay.
The early bird pricing is gonna go up by $50 on May 1st.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the cheapest will be $549 until the end of April, and then May, it'll go up to $599.
Okay.
And then if you don't sign up until July, it'll be $699. The price retails at just over $1,000, and you can even see on the product page, like I showed my receipts. Like
Yeah.
here's how I valued the class and the course content.
Mhm.
So you can really get a good idea on the product page that Amanda, you'll post it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Um, Read through that before you register just so that you have a really good understanding of what the class entails and what's included and all of that. And but
Yes.
yeah, I'm always open for questions. You can easily DM me at Karlee Porter Design on Instagram, um, or
Mm.
shoot me an email. I try really hard to be as responsive as possible, but um, I'm just a human, so
Yeah.
don't forget that.
You're like, "It's
But
just
yeah,
me."
yeah, but yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'd love
Yeah.
for anyone who wants to sharpen their free motion quilting skills and is looking for um, something that's going to give them longevity in their quilting education. This is
Mhm.
a really, really smart investment for
Mhm.
that. So,
Yep. Yep. It's
yeah.
just that. It's an investment in yourself and your skills and your growth as a quilter. So
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. Well, we'll obviously we'll stay in touch, but hopefully we'll see more from you on your Instagram, and
Yep.
hopefully we get some new signups because I want you to have a really successful class.
Thank you. Thanks. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. We'll chat
So,
soon.
okay. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
See ya.